This is the American Law Journal.
Disability claimants are feeling the squeeze. Longer waits for benefits, lower approval rates by judges, and now Congress may be cutting their benefits. Good evening. The longest and biggest backlog in the U.S. today are Social Security disability cases, and many feel that they found their scapegoat. Gina Passarella with the Legal Intelligencer reports.
And one reason your backlog may be so big is because it's so damn easy to get benefits.
Not for me, not for me. I hear every case. I see every person that's ever appeared before me. Everyone.
Social Security disability used to fly under the radar. Not anymore. Discussion of disability benefits is politicized, contentious, sometimes mean-spirited. Often it's judges in the crosshairs.
And I have the right.
It's not an adversary system. There's no advocate for the taxpayer that's in the courtroom.
We have a non-adversary system, sir. It's a non-adversary system, and I have to wear three hats.
It can't be too adversarial, or you would not reverse the hearing officer 90% of the time. And some of your colleagues, 99% of the time,
And a controversial 60 Minutes program in 2013 likely didn't help judges either. Although the report focused on the fraudulent behavior of just one disability judge, the inference was clear.
That this case is just one example of widespread abuse.
With the jump in disability fraud allegations and the biggest case backlog in the government, the answer for some is to point the finger at the judge.
And apparently, these administrative judges, they're not reviewing the medical evidence properly.
Remember, if somebody comes before an administrative law judge today, they've already been turned down twice by people who absolutely know Social Security law. I don't mean to impugn them all. But we also have some very lazy administrative law judges who don't read the record.
Facing the backlog and criticism, disability judges are overwhelmed. They're expected to adjudicate over 500 cases a year, but spend only 2.5 hours per case, and do it with drastic staffing and budget cuts that date back over 10 years. And the complexity of cases they rule on today are far different from yesteryear.
50 years ago, you had very few claims looking at things like mental illness or what's effectively back pain. And these dominate most claims today.
With Congress facing a Social Security disability budget deadline in 2016, something will have to get done.
We don't have a problem that we can't fix in our country. They're all fixable.
But that may only happen if the bickering dies down and the political will rises. For the American Law Journal, I'm Gina Passarella.
Okay, three guests with me this evening. Let's go ahead and meet them. Marilyn Polonsky is a claimants attorney with Polonsky and Polonsky in Audubon, New Jersey. Joining us from the CNN studios in Washington, D.C. tonight is the Honorable Marilyn Zahm. She is the Vice President of the Association for Administrative Law Judges, and she hears cases herself in Buffalo, New York. And Jess Leventhal joins us tonight, also with the claimants firm of Leventhal, Sutton, in Gornstein in Pennsylvania. Folks, we're taking your telephone calls tonight, 1-800-426-4625. If you're bashful, email us tonight at info@lawjournaltv.com. If you don't call early, we will not get to your phone call during the program. Well, I want to talk to the judge specifically about the role of judges and the role that judges play in getting people or denying people benefits. But first let's address the elephant in the courtroom and what's happening next year. Let's listen to the acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Carolyn Kraft.
We should not have persons with disabilities wondering whether or not in 2016 they're going to still receive a full benefit.
I agree with that.
Carolyn Colvin is her proper name, and the word is, and again, this was the first act of the new Congress, was to basically say disability insurance, we're going to be cutting that, or we're not going to be providing any more funds for it. So is it true, yes or no, could this fund run out in 2016?
Not really. I mean, it's a phony issue in a sort. The Disability Trust Fund is one trust fund. The Old Age Security Trust Fund is a separate trust fund. The Disability Fund is a much smaller part of that. In times in the past, they have switched money back and forth.
Right, but they're going to have to switch money back and forth to do this, to accomplish this.
It was known that they were going to have to do this 15 years ago.
Well, I know. And Judge, just a heads up here, of course, anything that smacks of politics, we're not asking you to answer that question. But as things stand right now, if nothing changes, people could lose 20% of their benefits in 2016.
Well, that's certainly something that Congress has indicated. If they don't replenish the trust fund, that will happen. But as the gentleman points out, it's not unusual for Congress to replenish the trust fund when it runs out.
Right. Somehow I think that someone may not blink this time, and this is also running into a presidential election. So, Jess, people probably shouldn't be too worried then if they're getting disability benefits?
I would hope that they shouldn't be. I would hope that they shouldn't be too worried. But given the type of brinksmanship we've seen in the last 4 to 5 years, anything's possible.
Okay.
I mean, a 20% cut when people can barely live on what they're getting now would be catastrophic.
All right, that's obviously something we're going to continue to look at as 2015 rolls on. Judge, let's go to you. You heard in that feature report a judge at the beginning of that feature saying, "I wear 3 hats." Tell us what those 3 hats that you wear in the courtroom, and is there anything like an administrative law judge in a Social Security disability setting in any other courtroom in the land?
Not that I'm aware of. We have a unique role in American jurisprudence. For the most part, other courts have adversarial hearings. That is, both sides are represented and the judge is the neutral making the decisions in the case, or calling the strikes and balls, so to speak. However, Social Security judges have to do 3 things, thus the 3-hat analogy. We have to develop the case for the claimant, we have to develop the case for the government, that is the trust fund, and we have to be the neutral arbiter. So we have a role that is unique.
So in some ways you really are claimant's attorney of sorts. You are, especially if he or she is not represented by a lawyer, you are representing the government, and you're there as the official arbiter of the case, meaning you're the trier of law and fact. So that sounds like a pretty heavy burden.
Yes.
That sounds like a heavy burden, and yet, if we listen to NPR or even the 60-minute special that you were on a couple of years ago, there is a wholehearted bashing of the Social Security disability system, and there are problems with that system, we understand, but it seems like a lot of people in the media appear to be leaving that problem at your feet.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, we're the easy target. We are the names on those decisions. Therefore, since we make the decisions, we have to be held accountable for them. The other reason is, besides the fact that it's easy, in some cases it may be warranted. Very few cases, but there have been some which have been publicized, and the judge in question, in particular I'm thinking of the judge in Morgantown or Huntington, West Virginia, in fact did lack integrity.
Certainly.
So it was justified in his case.
Well,
but
yes.
He's an aberration.
Yes, well, and that's...
Our judges, and there's 1,500 of them with
Yes.
Social Security, are hard-working, honest judges with integrity, who are very concerned about the claimants, who are very concerned about the integrity of the system.
And that's Judge, and that's actually my point.
Put in a lot
and we may be having
of
trouble with
overtime,
our feed here, but
uncompensated,
Judge, that is actually
in order to
part
get
of
the decisions out.
Judge,
In
can
fact,
you hear me?
We are the only union that I'm aware of which has negotiated our judges to be allowed to be in the office from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night, and except for the 8 hours that we are normally compensated for, we receive no compensation for our work during that period of time.
You know, part of what I've heard, Jess and Alan, is that there are members of political parties that say, we should really trust the experts. Don't trust the judges so much. Trust the people in the Social Security Administration. And again, if someone is applying for benefits, they're going to go to the administration. The only way you get in front of a judge, like Judge Zahm, is you have to be actually turned down first.
Correct.
But there has been this trend to say, let's trust the experts.
The experts are all over the place, unfortunately. You have doctors who think they're vocational experts. You have vocational experts who think they're doctors. That's why we have the judges, because the judges know the rules. The vocational experts don't know the rules, and I know that so well. We want to scream half the time, and the doctors don't have a clue. I mean, we have doctors who sit there and look at my 45-year-old and say, I can't imagine why they didn't get benefits, and it's because their date last insured was in 1982.
I mean, at the end of the day, disability is not a medical decision. It's a legal decision following a legal definition of what constitutes disability. Medical information is important, but a person isn't disabled because they have a particular medical condition. They're disabled because of the effect of the condition on their ability to engage in work activity. That's a legal consideration, not a medical one. So just saying that doctors should make the decision all by themselves, they don't often know what we mean by disability under the statute. And it just becomes kind of silly in a way to say that only medical experts should make the decision. They don't always know what disability means.
And Judge, what I was also driving at is that a lot of politicians say that we should really refer to the experts at the initial level, almost making it sound or inferring that judges are an afterthought. Why are we putting so much stock in judges when we have Social Security experts at the initial level? Doesn't that grate on you sometimes too?
Yes. Also, I think most of our judges feel that they are experts. I myself have been in this role for 21 years. I have seen enormous numbers of claimants, read thousands of files, listened to untold numbers of medical experts and vocational experts. I am on the front lines. The bureaucrats in their offices, behind their desks, who don't see claimants, who don't read those medical records, are not experts. I believe that I am. Also, let's take a look at the two levels of review that the claimant goes through before it gets to me. The first level is conducted by
a member of the administration, yes.
For the Disability Determination Services. That is a state agency that makes decisions on disability pursuant to a contract with the federal government. That person does not have a legal or medical background necessarily. They may consult a doctor or they may not, and they're probably not as familiar with the law, the rules, and the medical as I am.
Well, it just seems like there's a movement in this country to get judges out of the mix because, look, the problem has been, or so-called, the problem has been that too many people are getting benefits, that we have too many people on the rolls, we have a 1 million case backlog. I really do think, and I don't, it may sound like I'm currying favor with the judges, but it does sound like there's a group of folks in this country who would just think that the Social Security disability administration of benefits would be better off if we just got rid of judges. And you can't deny that there's somewhat of a movement in this country to go in that direction.
We were talking before the show, the percentage of people who are approved by judges and the percentage of cases that are eventually decided by judges. Of the people who apply, the 3 million applications that are filed, only 11% of those people ever get approved by judges at the end of the day. Of the people getting benefits, only between 22 and 24% of the people get approved by judges. So at these initial and reconsideration levels, as it is now and has been, the overwhelming majority of the cases are decided not by the judges, but by the state agencies.
And Judge, again, addressing the criticism that you folks are approving too many cases, let's take a look at some of the latest statistics. You go back to the 1990s, over 70% of the folks were receiving benefits once they got in front of an administrative law judge. Look at how those numbers have changed, 63%, 2011, 58%. Latest statistics, only 44% of the people who appear in front of people such as yourself, Judge, are getting benefits. Shouldn't that please the people that say the disability system is being abused?
Well, you know, there are a number of reasons for that. This is a complex area, this is a complex problem, and the fast and easy answers are not always the right ones. For one thing, for 8 years during the Bush administration, we had very few staff that were replaced because of attrition, so our numbers went down. Then in 2007, there was a financial calamity in this country. People were thrown out of work. After a while, people who could not find jobs, they needed some income, they filed for disability. As a result, we were flooded with applications. We had, at that point, a lower staff ratio, and were faced with an enormous problem. It's true, some people took shortcuts. A handful of judges paid claims because Quite frankly, the administration pushed us to make fast and easy decisions, and it was easier to pay the case than to write a very long affirmation or to do the kind of work that one would need to do in order to really evaluate the disability.
You have a comment on that,
claim.
Jess?
Yeah, but Judge, the numbers don't show that.
Go ahead.
Filed applications.
Go ahead, Jess. Keep talking. We're having a little trouble
Judge,
audio-wise.
unfortunately, the numbers are to the contrary. When you see the way that numbers have dropped, and I agree with you that it's not easy answers. There are a number of things that have happened over the last 8 or 9 years. But the numbers, looking at the numbers, the judges don't look like anyone is encouraging them to pay anything.
The agency, to its credit, introduced screens in order to pay cases earlier. Compassionate allowances for certain types of medical problems such as cancer that there was a great likelihood that the person would be disabled. Because of all of those factors, and then the scandal in Huntington with the judge who was just paying all of the claims, and I should add, that was facilitated and encouraged by the agency because their concern at that point was dispositions. They needed to get more cases out the door because everyone was clamoring that the backlog was such a problem.
Well, once again, Judge, you said that 90 to 99%, as they were alleging in that 60-minute special, that judges were willy-nilly, giving 90 to 99% approval. If I look at the numbers, that was near impossible. And I just wonder if you feel that the judges were treated fairly by NPR and even by 60 Minutes, because I look back at some of those documentaries, and it still looks as though they were putting, again, the blame at your feet, saying, look, this is not one isolated case. This is obviously fraud that is taking place across the nation. And I feel in some ways they did you a disservice, and I think they did the American people a disservice by saying that somehow this was widespread. These are very isolated instances, and again, I think they did a disservice there.
Former Commissioner Apfel referred to them as outliers, and there were outliers. And if there are judges, and there were, a handful of judges that were approving a huge number of cases, hearing a huge number of cases, and approving a huge number of cases. The judge is right. The agency wanted the cases out the door. They wanted the cases to be processed, and I don't think that's unreasonable in and of itself. Getting the cases decided is important. But you got to remember, as many judges who were approving everybody, there were judges on the other side. Just as many denying virtually everybody. There were about 50 judges or so on either end of the spectrum. There were just outliers, as Commissioner Apfel referred to them, who were just out of the mainstream. But the overwhelming majority of the judges were within a fairly narrow parameters in approving about the same number of cases or denying about the same number of cases.
You folks have been very patient. We do have a full bank of calls, so let's start processing some of your telephone calls tonight. Laura, you're up first tonight on ALJ. What's your question for us?
My question is, I have been waiting. I've been out of work. It'll be 2 years in September due to a back injury. And I've applied and I've gotten turned down. I have a lawyer involved. And I just don't understand why the process takes so long.
Jess.
Recurring question.
No, it's unfortunately you're looking at 700,000 cases sitting.
Almost a million.
Yeah. We're now at 17 months at the 3 or 4 hearing offices that I work at in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. There's just an enormous amount of people. I mean, I'm hearing this day in, day out. People are losing their homes. People are getting divorced. I've got people who are living in tents in various woods around Philadelphia. I mean, it's a horrible situation, and unfortunately, it's not getting any better anytime soon.
No easy answers, right, Judge?
No, although the agency has taken steps to increase the number of administrative law judges this year and next year. There'll be an additional 250 judges hired this year and the same next year. However, we expect attrition to be 100 to 125 each of those years.
Yeah, but Judge, if they don't give you more staff, how are we going to get the decisions out? You can't even get enough cases pulled to be able to get most of the judges the number of hearings they'd like to do per month at this point. So are we going to get more staff? I realize it's not for you to decide that.
The agency is going to be hiring more support staff.
Good luck, Lori. Let's go to Jessica next. Jessica, you're on ALJ. What's your question?
Hi, I was listening online about the longer wait periods and the judges being criticized. I'm wondering, it's kind of concerning me about my case. I just applied due to the doctor saying I had to stop working because of MS. Should I get a lawyer? Will that speed up my case or give me a better chance of getting approved?
Well, I would like to say it would get the case speeded up. It won't. I mean, an attorney might be able to present the evidence quicker, might be able to get the evidence to the Social Security Administration quicker. MS is a particularly difficult situation to deal with because it depends on what your symptoms are more than just having MS. Should you get a lawyer? I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to tell you never to get a lawyer. I think it would be helpful. It might get at least something to do with getting the case, the evidence before the administration faster. But if you're denied at the initial level, and if you're in Pennsylvania, you're going to wait in line for a hearing with everybody else. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can do about that.
Once again, hurry up and wait. And again, we don't see any immediate help other than what the judge just said, that hopefully some more ALJs are going to be out there. Maybe, hopefully with the economy getting a little bit better, less people will be applying. The baby boom is still moving through the system. We're going to still see that. We're going to still see the baby boom effect for at least another decade. Yeah, exactly.
He's still too young.
Right, he's still too young, I understand. Right. Let's go to our next call. I think it's Ron is up next. Is it Ron? Okay. All right, we'll get right back to Ron. An issue that's come up, and Judge, you might be on the other side of the panel on this particular issue, or at least the other side of the Oscar attorneys. Let's take a look at a small clip that we have here that I believe Tom Coburn, who's the former senator, talked about having another attorney in the disability courtroom.
Today, there are currently more than 9 million disabled Americans receiving benefits. A new report, though, claims that up to 25% of those receiving government benefits.
That was my bad. I actually called for the wrong one. But let's go ahead and address that one for just a moment, though. I'm hearing wildly disparate numbers as far as fraud in the system goes. We just saw something from a conservative media outlet there that said that there's 25% fraud in the disability system, and yet I go to the GAO, government organization, that says it's closer to 0.4%. Who am I to believe? Who's the public to believe?
GAO. Look, there's money involved.
Right.
And when there's money involved, there are going to be people who are trying to cheat. People cheat on their taxes. People cheat on their spouses. People cheat. Are the numbers huge? Are they anywhere like 25%? As I said before, if the judges are only approving of the people getting benefits 22 to 24%, unless every case before a judge is fraudulent, then that number is absurd. That number is ridiculous. If they're going to say the state agencies are right, well, the state agencies are approving the overwhelming majority of the cases. So to say that there's no fraud, no, that's silly. Of course there are people cheating. But is there anywhere near the kind of numbers that they're talking about? It's just not possible.
Okay, let's go ahead and switch to the issue that I wanted to raise, and I threw a curveball at my director, so I apologize. But let's take a look at this issue, and this again is Tom Coburn talking about disability lawyers. Do we need someone on the defense side, the government side, in the courtroom? Go ahead.
The answer to that is to have the qualified federal employees who made the decision to turn them down in the first place in the courtroom representing us for why they were turned down. See, we have nobody representing the American taxpayer in the courtroom. We only have somebody representing the claimant.
Judge, that's a fair critique, no?
Yes, I mean, that's the way every other court system in the United States works, is you have both sides represented. So there's clearly nothing wrong with that. I would point out that our system has worked well. It certainly could use some reform. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about what changes we think need to be made. But I think the government representative, and I'm not sure that that's a good name for it. How about the name actually Senator Coburn called it in his legislation was disability attorney. Have the disability attorney work up the case. If it turned out that the claimant was qualified for benefits, that case could be paid earlier in the process. That person would not have to wait as long. And the disability attorney, if he thought or she thought that the judge was clearly wrong, could appeal the case. Would that be so bad? I don't think so.
Which disability attorney? Am I going to be appealing the case, or I'm going to watch the government representative as a disability attorney appealing against his own ALJ? I'm not sure that's going to work, Your Honor.
And how expensive is it going to be? How many offices are you going to staff? As the judge said, there's 1,500 judges. Are you going to have 1 or 2 attorneys appointed to represent people in every hearing before an administrative law judge? 3,000 attorneys to be doing that work, and the staff that goes with them? They don't have the staff to do the job fully as it is, and you're asking for a staffing increase that's at least 50% over what they have now. I don't see how that can possibly work. And they tried that. They tried it 30 years ago.
Oh, did they really?
They did. They tried it. They had government representatives in hearings. There were a couple of offices, one in Arizona, I forget where else there was. I was working for the government at the time. I applied for that job. They tried it, and at the end of the day, they found out that percentage of cases approved did not change very much at all.
Very quickly, and by the way, folks, we're still taking your phone calls after the half hours over 1-800-426-4625. Even once we leave the air, we'll take your phone calls. Let's end on Bernie Sanders. Let's listen to this.
Mr. Chairman, the Social Security Disability Insurance Program is a life and death program for nearly 11 million Americans. This is a program that American workers have paid into. It is an insurance program. This is not charity.
We've only got a few seconds left, but your comment on that statement by Senator Sanders.
I love Senator Sanders. Yeah, Social Security is the best thing our government does. We need to pledge that we will keep the system in place, assisting our citizens. As Gandhi said, the measure of a society's greatness is how we treat our weakest members.
I want to thank Judge Marilyn Zahm tonight with the Association of Administrative Law Judges in Washington, D.C., and Alan Polonsky and Jess Leventhal here on the set with me. We're still taking your phone calls, folks. 1-800-426-4625. For all of us here at the American Law Journal, thanks for joining us this week. Until next Monday night, case closed.
This week's American Law Journal has been made possible in part by Law Catalyst, legal media and marketing for lawyers. Go to lawcatalyst.com. Beatty, Sloan, and DeGenova. Decades of experience providing personal attention to those injured at work or suffering from serious injury due to medical malpractice, defective products, motor vehicle accidents, and other causes, with offices in Philadelphia and Haddonfield, New Jersey. King, Spry, Herman, Freund, and Fall, serving its clients in family law, business, personal injury, and school law for over 30 years. If it's a big project in the Lehigh Valley, it probably has King Spry's name on it. And the Legal Intelligencer, an American lawyer media company, and the oldest daily legal newspaper in the United States.